for this episode of the Weird Obscure World podcast.
I have been abducted.
Wait, what?
Their main forms they take are reptilian entities.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes. Don't forget,
Please like, share, review, subscribe, interact.
rate us on iTunes. It's
Yes.
a big deal. Apparently, iTunes is the hub of all that is podcast.
Yeah, it really is. And there's
Find us, rate us, review us on iTunes. Good, bad, we want to hear it because we want to be good at that.
found another podcast catcher that we're still trying to figure out how to negotiate our way onto. Yeah, but
Excellent,
we'll
yeah.
get there.
And you should find us on most of the places where you find your podcasts. If you don't, let us know.
Yes, please. Let us know. All right, so it's Betsy's week. She gets to start.
Weird news of the week. My news, strangely enough, has to do with a neighbor dispute.
A neighbor dispute.
Yes. So the neighbor dispute, as it would go, is one neighbor's fence.
Mm-hmm.
Neighbor next door apparently wants the fence to meet code. This part I don't understand, because if my neighbor had a 6-foot fence, I would want that level of privacy between us. This neighbor
Depending on the neighbor.
This neighbor wants it to be to code. So he wants the fence shortened
Uh-huh.
to the 4-foot height that is code. So
So the neighbor's a guy that wants it shortened, and then the one with the tall fence is a girl that sunbathes a lot. What are we talking?
it doesn't say in particular whether or not the requesting neighbor is male or female. But
They're
the
probably
man,
kept anonymous.
yeah, this is happening in California.
Mm-hmm. Democratic People's Republic.
Yes, and it reads, the headline reads, man forced to shorten fence gets even with nude. This guy's legit, my hand.
Yeah.
So his neighbor was like, your fence isn't code. And she goes to code enforcement and turns him in.
Uh-huh.
And code enforcement says, yeah, you're right, it's not code. Take that fence down. So here's what he does. Garden party. He's got a patio set. He's got naked mannequins dancing around the patio set. He's even got a sign that says, reserved seat for the nosy neighbor that complained about my fence to city. So he's reserved the nosy neighbor a seat at the naked mannequin.
Does the neighbor have to be naked to join?
I
suppose he'd make that call depending on gender and aesthetics of said neighbor.
Yeah, that would definitely come in.
Yeah.
Like perhaps he did the naked mannequin party because, he thinks the neighbor would look nice naked there.
You know who else was a code enforcer?
Who?
Oh,
he was.
Yes. That
Whole
was
new
part
twist
of
on
his
this.
whole shtick. His neighbor says he was a jerk too.
Total.
Mm.
So anyway, naked mannequin
So-
party. Can you imagine?
so he's got, like-
now every day when you sit out in your backyard and you're eating your humble pie, you have to look over and see. I mean, they're absurd. Mannequins are creepy because they lack any real definition to any parts. They're just like plastic.
Like big Barbie dolls.
Yeah. So every day, that's what you get to see. That's right. Little humble pie served up, naked mannequin.
I feel
style.
bad for him. He's got to have that as his yard ornament forever.
Except he's digging it. He thinks
Yeah.
it's hilarious. He even put a sign up for
Does
his
he have
neighbor.
a wife?
It doesn't say.
I imagine he does not. I would imagine.
You could probably infer that he does not.
Yes, yes. I mean, my household, I could get away with that.
Yes.
Your household,
No way.
your husband could not.
No.
All right, you ready?
Ready.
Scientists in China have cloned what they call the Sherlock Holmes police dog in a bid to cut training times and costs.
Okay, so super smart dog.
So in China, they've got a 7-year-old female dog named, bear with me, that's part of the name. I didn't actually clear my throat. Huangama.
Very good. You're-
Huangam. NGMA. Holy cow.
yes.
Man.
Your Chinese is getting better.
Oh, it is. I'm telling you,
Stepping up the game.
they should honestly. It's like
They need to buy a vowel.
athletics for the tongue.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's gymnastics, tongue gymnastics. Anyway, so this who has won a series of awards for helping crack multiple cases. They took some DNA from her and cloned that DNA. So just one word in here I'd like to pronounce. Kunming wolf dog is China's first ever police dog clone and has adjusted well to her new environment, according to the project analysis one.
So they're far enough into this that
the dog is already grown. Like the dog's probably an adolescent now, and it's in training now. So this happened. They cloned the dog a while back.
boy, that dog, no pressure.
Yeah.
Badong.
So it says she's friendly to humans, sociable and alert. Also says she has established and shown that she has a good sense of smell, which is the strongest asset for a working dog, you know.
And what kind of dog is this again?
It doesn't say the kind of dog, but just looking at the picture, it looks like it's along the shepherd breed, like a.
I don't know why you would need to clone them. I mean, they're generally.
Well, if you clone, do they end up being? That's the question. There's a lot of questions. Okay, does genetics pass down through the workings of the brain, or is that an environmental experience that causes
Nature
that?
versus nurture.
I don't know, but they say the dog's name in here. That's the it's a Kunming is the kind of dog.
Kunming?
Kunming.
Is that Japanese for something, or is that like a Japanese breed of dog?
I don't know. Well, they're in China, and China is. I just want to. That's a crazy story. They clone a dog to genetically make the dog, which is wild all in itself. That they're going ahead with cloning, but the crazy part is China's doing all these experiments that are, for whatever reason, stuff that are experiments that we're here in the United States holding back from. We don't want to play in those waters for whatever reason. There's probably some religious, some political, and quite frankly, some we just don't see a value to it. Where China is just breaking into capitalism, so they're going to be doing all sorts of wild stuff. And we're going to see some, I think, amazing things come out of China. I think we're going to see the first flying cars probably going to come out of China. Just things that we postulated we'd have now in, say, the 60s. We don't have it because of maybe our structures are already set and designed to run a certain way, but where China's brand new and they're still designing their structures, I think we're going to see some stuff come out of there that are pretty amazing.
The father of necessity.
As
As they try to define as a country who they are going to be long term, the father of necessity. They're going to. I think they will outpace us.
It's not just that. It's if you're an artist and the canvas already has paint on it, kind of dictates what you're going to paint. If that canvas is blank, you can go anywhere you want.
That's an interesting. I hope that they're like studying the differences as well, instead of just creating the dog because it's a great dog. Like, I think it would be a better control to find like the dumbest.
gotta have a
like
base.
Yeah.
Base test control.
Yeah, like to find like the derpiest dog, clone it, like it was born.
But who wants to be the person that
like,
says,
but see, that's
I
a good
had the
control.
Dumbest dog?
But that's a great control,
It
because
is.
then
It is.
there's measurable things that you can attain from that.
They definitely need to. I think the proof will be in the pudding.
Or maybe find a breed of dog that's not a good. Because I think that Germanesque type dogs, like German Shepherd kind of dogs.
The Kunming it sounds like it's an Oriental dog. It might be an Oriental Shepherd.
A Cocker Spaniel. Find a super smart, super astute Cocker Spaniel. It's going to be hard. Look far and wide. Perhaps there is one. And clone it. Because they are not. I mean, historically, they're retarded.
Well, yeah.
And very difficult.
Yeah.
They're super cute, though.
They run sideways.
Yeah. So find one of them. Because I think to take a breed of dog that's being used in a way that plays into its, born attributes. Like it's got, that's like cloning a bloodhound for its smell. I mean...
Well, I think, that's its attribute. I think the big test will come how long it takes from start to finish of the training regimen.
Yeah, as long as
the training
they've got something to compare it to.
Yeah, and ideally, the way I would gear this towards, if if I was to test, I'd gear towards those seeing eye dogs, because that's got a huge training regimen with it.
Yeah.
Dogs to just find drugs, from what I know of the training, most of that is the dogs learn to play with stuff that smells like the drugs, and then they alert to that and want to play with it. A military working dog, like the police dogs and all that, those are trained, highly trained in function with a human being as a partner, like a police partner or a battle buddy in combat, whatever.
The dog barking in the background is
Yes.
all part of this.
Yes, it is
She is trained as a guard dog.
timely barking. But those seeing eye dogs, that training, from what I understand, is a year and a half.
Well, and there's
Super
so many that
expensive.
don't make the cut. They start these seeing eye dog or partner dogs, in particular for children. Those are the most highly trained, because they will eventually belong to the most vulnerable of the blind community. So they're given these benchmarks that they have to meet, and if they don't meet one of those benchmarks, they are sold. They don't
Just kind of out of the
yeah,
system.
they just, you didn't meet it, you failed, and they move on to those. So it's a very elite group of dogs. I think that would be a great control too.
Yeah, but I think it's all time. How long does it take for a dog to meet the benchmark, to complete doggy college?
Yes, to get a doggy degree.
A doggy degree and wear the robe and the sash and the square hat.
That's right, square hats, doggy degree.
All right. But yeah, I thought that was interesting, and it really opened up my mind to think, we picture China, as the news tells us, is this third world country that has slave labor that builds our stuff. But what we're not
We do
seeing...
kind of picture it that way.
Yeah.
Like industrial,
Kind
in
of like...
the sense that they're pumping out little squeaky toys and articles of clothing.
Well, we see China, as I'm sure England saw us, around 1850 during the Industrial Revolution. England saw us and probably felt pity for us because, of course we had slavery, which is obviously a pitiable circumstance. But during the Industrial Revolution, a lot of immigrants coming in, and that kind of industrial labor, which as a civilization moves forward, that's one of the steps that they invariably go. Is that growing into their time. A lot of people kind of get stepped on, but they get stepped on so their kids don't have to, and they rarely complain about that part. So that they make a tough generation, then the kids become a working generation. The working generation makes the weak generation. The cycle starts over.
Right. It's cyclical for sure. So.
And right now, I think we're dealing with a lot of. Well, anyways, we all know my feelings on sensitivity.
Yeah. Don't sugarcoat it for us,
I love
Jerry.
you, kids.
We know. On to the meat.
On to the meat. So far, our news hasn't been funny. There has to be something funny going on out there. I've got a few.
I think maybe spring brings a lull. Maybe we'll see this each year, that as the new moon phases in and the spring starts to arrive, people aren't cooped up doing as weird of things. They're out exploring, looking for cryptids.
Could be.
Perhaps.
Or March is a time of fertility, right?
Oh, yes.
So in Japan,
Perhaps they're doing other things.
in March, there is a festival.
Yes.
The Phallus Festival.
Yes. They've got a phallus park.
And the town is, let me root up the name of the town, because I think we can have fun with it. Just one time. I could even deal with the Spanish word for a minute. Aichi Prefecture.
Sounds legit.
In Japan, which sounds like a religious park, or Komaki,
It actually sounds almost like
north of
a
Nagoya.
disease. Like you got the Aichi Prefecture. Take these. Call me in the morning.
Yeah, still much easier than anything China's pushing at me. But anyway, so in March they have the Phallus Festival. So they've got this big, like, I don't know what you call it, carried on your shoulders, 4 dudes carry it, and it looks like what kings and queens would ride in, like the carriage carried by men and whatever, but it's just got a big old penis. It's just, and it's got like the carriage
on
booth.
A spick?
No, it's like got a carriage booth, a big blue
it's
carriage
inside?
booth. Well, the middle of it it's huge. It pokes out the back and pokes out the front. And you can buy bananas that are whittled to look like penises, and bananas dipped in chocolate with sprinkles on them whittled to look like. I'm sure
We've got to visit one
I'm
time.
sure that. Well, you and
I
Cody are
want
going
to
overseas.
see you at the Phallus Festival.
You know how many bananas in front of other men, don't you?
Sideways or something.
With the spoon. Anyhow, but this Phallus Festival, it's a big deal, and everything there is shaped like penises everywhere. You know, you buy hot dogs on a stick. It's been whittled to look like a penis, and it's kind of and it's a celebration of fertility. And I realize, and I hope that one day our whole nation realizes that not all cultures look at sexuality negative, and not all cultures look at the human body negatively. Our culture does. Our culture has a faux pas on that. Where it comes from can be argued all day and all night. You'll never come up with an answer.
A million different ways.
But it is an argument. Maybe it's from our, Protestant heritage. I don't know. But whatever it is, a big penis festival, and I would like to see you on your overseas trip. Take your husband.
Oh, he would have a come apart. I would have to tranquilize him and carry him in one of those things.
Next to the penis?
Yeah, that's the only way I could get him to go.
Have you ever seen those?
And even I would probably be so embarrassed.
It wouldn't bother me a bit. I mean, in Korea they had not a park, but it was like a monastery, but they had like an area that had penis statues and stuff, and it didn't bother me a bit. But have you ever seen those pictures like they take where the newborn baby's being held by the dad on one arm? Just imagine Cody laying limp across the penis. No, he's sleeping on the penis. He's the newborn baby.
That would be the only way.
Well, women carry penises like newborn babies. They're big wooden phalluses.
Oh.
Yeah, so we could have a little fun with that. Had to bring some fun in.
That would be an interesting festival to attend, just to be a part of something that's totally opposite of anything you would ever find here.
Yeah, but here we have Mardi Gras, which is about,
the same. No.
it's about, well, Mardi Gras Mardi Gras is about the birth of Jesus, right? Or the rebirth, when he came back to life. And it's turned into showing off boobs for beads.
Yeah. So I think that we're so far away from the origins of Mardi Gras that there's no longer even parts of it that remain.
Yeah, that's supposed to be the celebration, but
yeah, it's moved so far away from that it's no longer even got any of the attributes.
Yeah. Would you argue that Mardi Gras is less because of that change, or is it still good?
Well, I have had the opportunity to be in down near New Orleans. I, of course, did not stay in the districts of New Orleans that celebrate. We were there for meetings, but we were there during Mardi Gras. And I would say they have a great time. They really do. They have a really great time. You see very interesting, very intricate floats. I think that the party-like atmosphere is similar to spring break, but probably takes away from the original traditions of Mardi Gras, especially for the Creole people, who tradition seems to be everything, except that's just become, like in Brazil, the Festival. It's very traditional, stayed the same, centuries, and I think that Mardi Gras could have been that, but it's a giant party.
I would like to see that festival. So you see pictures of it where it looks like the road is like 10 lanes wide, and it's packed with bands and creative floats. People walking on stilts.
I've never really talked to. I have some friends from New Orleans that maybe I'll just ask them what they think of Mardi Gras, because maybe the experience is different for tourists. Maybe you just go one street over. And and there's
like
actual celebration.
They've got a parade going next to like the band walks this way, crosses the street, and then it's all.
Then it's the tradition. I don't know. We just saw, given that it's extremely dangerous, first of all, to be in those crowds.
Is it?
Yeah.
How so?
Well, they've had the balconies actually collapse. There's tons of muggings and things like that happen during Mardi Gras, simply because they are packing I mean, these are old, like cobblestone.
Imagine if someone stole my wallet and his credit score went down because of him trying to
I know.
use my card. What?
Damn it. Yeah, so I think it'd be interesting to go. I think that
Yeah.
the Phallus Festival, Mardi Gras, I think those are all very interesting ways to, I guess, really visit.
Yeah.
Like to take part in something
Yeah, take
strange.
part in their stuff.
Yeah.
All right, on to the story, Betsy.
Today's story, I kind of switched around this week.
Mhm.
I was going to cover another subject, but really just couldn't find a lot of information on it. So I'm covering a subject that there is plethora of information on.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk crop circles.
Circle de la Crop.
Circle de la crop. So a crop circle
Do you
is a
think that's how
formation.
they say? How do you? All the Spanish speakers out there.
Croppo. We're not good at Chinese or Spanish. So a crop circle.
You know, I can write in Chinese.
Yes.
Just can't
You
read
just
it.
can't read it. Yeah. A crop circle or a crop formation is a pattern that's created by flattening the crop.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone knows that. What I didn't know is it's usually done in cereal. So cereal crops.
Uh-huh.
Not like Fruit Loops or anything like that, but
Uh-huh.
like cereal, the origins of cereal. So there's an actual term for someone who studies crop circles. I think I am one now.
Okay.
It's a cereal or cereologist. That's a real term.
Okay, hold on.
I am a cereologist.
So a person, okay, they make crops in
Oats,
grain-bearing
rice, yes.
plants,
Mhm.
and people who study crop circles, not just people who study the plants, people who study
No,
crop
because
circles.
people who study the plants are sedum theologists. Cerealists study crop circles
Okay.
or crop formations.
Sedumologists?
No, sedum theorist. It's an discipline. Where cereologist is kind of like ufologist or cryptozoologist. It's not an actual discipline, but I am one
Okay.
officially.
Cereologists.
I'm a cereologist now. I don't
Should
know.
we start an organization?
I don't know. I mean, like, you know how like dentists have DEA.
Should we call Robert Bigelow?
We may have to.
You know who he is, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Get Robert Bigelow to
Yeah.
fund some kind of cereology.
There are lots of cereologists. I'm one of them.
You're
I've joined a
gang.
gaggle of.
Yeah, what do you call a group of cereologists?
I don't know.
An aisle 10?
Yes. So the term was first coined in the early 1980s by Colin Andrews.
Mm-hmm.
So crop circles have historically been described as all falling within the range of sort of thing done in hoaxes. So it's very clearly been described as a hoax.
Uh-huh.
I would say after doing all of my research, that theory doesn't hold.
No? Why not?
No. Well, because if you look at the history of crop circles, the first crop circles showed up in like 1932.
Okay.
And prior to that, 1678, there's a news pamphlet where they talk about the mowing devil. And here's what it says. The pamphlet tells of a farmer in Herefordshire who swore that a devil...
Herefordshire, that's where the hobbits come from, right?
Yes, in
Little,
Hobbitville.
little mound houses with doors.
Right. So it's got an illustration where they are claiming that the devil did it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a circular pattern in 1678. So it goes way before the two fellers that claim they did the crop circles. They were, I mean, unless we really are on a time repeat and they lived back then and then, you know, they came back and did more crop circles.
They hopped in with Baron.
Right. So that wasn't considered a crop circle then, but I mean, really did set the historical precedent for being a crop circle, given that it was an illustration of a devil mowing a circle, and the farmer talked about a devil, you know, put a circle into his crops. So 1932, an archaeologist observed 4 dark rings in a field. So again, it's these two guys would have been infants in 1932.
In 1932, I don't think born.
I'm not sure their exact age, but
They were only in,
I mean,
their
in the-
20s and the 80s.
yeah. So no, was it in the 80s that they said it? Yeah, it may have been in the 80s that they came forward. At any rate, these have been around a lot longer than these just two hoaxers.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, but
So what do you think's causing it?
well, on record, there are more than 1,000 in 26.
Okay.
So there's a couple of theories. one of the theories would have to be that there's just a bunch of wankers out there ruining fill. I mean, it's akin to the cement guy laying his cement and someone sneaking in behind his back and putting handprints in it. I mean, they're destroying these crop fields. However, as we get into science, you'll find that farmers are not super upset about this because in the crop circle areas, their yields are better the following year. So, fast forward.
Could that be because the plant dies there and returns nutrients down?
Well, could be. In a lot of cases, the plant doesn't die. They reorient. People that have arrived to crop circles right after they've happened have seen the plants start to pop back up. Now, that changes significantly. You start getting a lot of publicity because there are some crop circles historically that showed up and people just trampled them.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to
whole
get
everything.
pictures and so on and so forth. So, prehistory of crop circles actually shows cave paintings that could have been attributed to crop circles.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not talking something that just showed up. So this devil seen in a caricature in 1678 is showed as pressing the plant down in a circular pattern. They called it the mowing devil.
Now, were they thinking it was an actual devil that was doing it or a demon, or were they just calling the person they attributed to a devil?
Yeah, so I don't know. Given historically the time, they may have actually thought a devil was doing it.
It was written in a lot of thee and thou.
Yeah. So the first known crop circle investigator was Robert Plot. He was a professor of chemistry in 1680. He visited farms in southern England to examine the phenomenon firsthand. In his words, he excavated over 50 crop circle sites and noted farmers' stories about other crop circle reports. Plot noted simple circles, circles with squares, circle rings, and spirals. Plot noted that animals tended to stay away from the crop circles. And he also did his own historical research, uncovering additional historical reports that talked about these circles. So these circles have been around a really long time. So 1852 is another record. Reverend Robert Sewell left for a tour of the western states. He traveled across New York, Canada, Michigan, and crossed Lake Michigan to land in Wisconsin. After staying in Fulton, he began his return trip, and he wrote in his passage that he had seen several burnt or lowered places in grass, which had been caused what he thought was lightning. They also passed several mounds that they now attribute to Indian race having built these mounds.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all kind of happening in conjunction with one another. A big area for crop circles is near Stonehenge, which brings me to my next, I guess, connection that scientists have noted it, and the hoaxers couldn't have done it.
Mm-hmm.
So near Stonehenge, big formation of rocks, you find other rock circles.
Yeah.
That have just been, I mean, there's no way for them to have been naturally displayed in this. They've been placed. And near these rock circles, they have a plethora of crop circles they have studied. Some they have absolutely said are man-made.
Mm.
Some have attributes that just couldn't be man-made.
What if there is a secret underground religion
That does crop circles.
that does crops? They meet every fourth, Saturday.
Well, I guess there could be. But the history of crop circles has changed. So they would have to have a way to communicate that amongst themselves. In 1900s, the crop circles were just circles. Okay? Just circles.
Mm-hmm. What if they started competing? Started wanting to show the other wards how much better they are at their circle.
These circles wouldn't have made
parishes.
world new. And we're talking all over the world. Mm-hmm. So in every country, rice fields. If you've ever seen a rice field.
In the paddies?
Yes.
Like
they
paddies?
were finding circles.
Religion everywhere.
Yes. I have my theories, which are kind of...
What if we get a knock at the door for this? A couple guys in suits with black name tags?
They're like, stop talking.
We're here to share the good news with you.
So 1910 there's a huge upswing in circles, but they're all just circles. In the 30s through the 60s, the circles had a connecting rod between them.
So it looked like an old school dumbbell.
Yes. Then we start getting numbers of 3. So it's like a progression of circles.
Mm.
There are thousands of images of circles 1950s. 1950s. Well, some people say that this is the Celtic cross insignia. And if you look at a lot of Celtic turn of the century stuff, you'll find the large circle in the middle and the 4 circles on the outside in everything. It's in their floors, it's in their walls, it's in their crosses, it's in everything.
I can see that.
So scientists really start picking up on these, and what they find is that the pattern with which the grass is laid down is not smash, 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 but it's interwoven.
Really?
So
it lays down not just one direction, but it'll lay down across each other.
Yeah. So what they find in the earliest circles is that on the very outer edge of one row, it's one and then the other, and then one, and then they're going the opposite direction. So some are pointing into the circle, and some are pointing out of the circle. So they immediately start thinking there's some kind of wind that's picking these up and spinning them around.
What if it's like a dust devil?
That's initially what they thought. There has to be some weather pattern.
So a dust devil
spinning the crop around in this manner. And you can find hundreds of pictures, we'll include some of them, of this happening.
Mm-hmm.
Another point of contention is the geometrics that they're finding in these crop circles. That's usually the first telltale sign that one is man-made and one is not man-made. The geometrics are absolutely perfect.
Mm-hmm.
In the early 80s, geometrists would create them on paper. And one group actually went on record that it took them to recreate one particular crop circle as perfect as it was laid out on the ground, 2 weeks on paper. So the idea that someone's out there doing this, where's their practice? How are they getting it perfectly right
in church
the first time in church?
Mm-hmm.
They're studying in church.
You go into one of their churches, it looks normal on the outside. You go in, the father or the priest is wearing bib overalls and a straw hat, obviously. And they're, instead of like floors and pews, they just have grass. Or not grass, but what is cereologist? Cereologist. Why do they call them cereologists? I wonder why they went to that. I mean,
because it's normally done in cereal.
Well, you can't obviously do it in potato patel. Tomatoes just fall over anyway.
There have been a couple in corn. I mean,
the corn is a cereal.
Yeah, but the corn stalks, you gotta want it.
Well, that's when the mothership.
It has to be.
The whole parish comes together to corn.
So what they're finding is this progression in circles year over year kind of takes on where they all start to have the same kind of formation.
Mm-hmm.
So circles one year, there was even a year where they look like insects, which are really interesting to me because
so they
there's
go
something
outside
we
of the
recognize.
circle.
Yes.
And they make insects.
Yes. Another thing that I think is really interesting to me is some of them took on almost symbolic.
Yeah. Yeah. That
almost some symbolic where they
looks almost like it would be like a Native American.
Yes.
Or
kind of like there's an arrow at one side.
Ancient Celtic symbol, or maybe Mesopotamian.
So this is a crop circle that they determined was a hoax.
You see, now that one just looks beautiful.
Yes.
Just the way it shines.
So this was found in Solano, California in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
And an artist stepped forward and said that him and 2 of his friends had actually created this on paper and then did it in the field. So, of course, the actual serologists who study this, went to check it out to see if there was a difference between it.
They also want to study
the ones
hoaxes
that are man-made, yes. Yeah. And what they found is a couple of really interesting differences. One of the things that they have found 100% of the time in crop circles that are considered to be outside of man-made. Yeah, a real cereologist. I have a hard time with that word. I need to get better at it.
You'd think a cereologist would be any 5-year-old boy when his mother has, Fruit Loops in the...
Exactly. So any real cereologist, they don't believe that crop circles are necessarily an alien ship landings.
Mm-hmm.
There are several theories. All of them, I would think, make a lot of sense. But they believe that there is valuable information to be gleaned from a different perspective, or those that are absolutely 100% been claimed to be man-made.
Mhm.
A couple of things they find that's different. Inside crop circles that have been deemed authentic crop circles, there are a lengthening of the plant nodes. So the plant nodes...
Is that the base of the plant?
No, the plant nodes are found, picture to show you, the plant nodes are found on the stalks. As the plant grows, it gets...
Is that where the leaf comes out of?
It gets these, they're like knuckles.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Little knuckles. So this is a picture of plant nodes inside the formation.
Okay.
Versus plant nodes outside the formation.
Okay.
So this elongating of the plant node, scientists have recreated what it would take to be able to do that. One of the earliest scientists to study this is W.C. Levengood, and he really took this on as a pet project. He's a biophysicist by his degree.
Mm-hmm.
He took this on as a pet project to understand what forces could possibly be doing. And what he found was the only way he could recreate that lengthening of nodes would be a release of, say, steam. So he would get the plants really, really moist, which I guess would happen at night. They would retain some moisture just because the dew point would be elevated. And then he would superheat. And in that superheating, the plant nodes would. So there was some heat element that had been applied. That was also seen in these nodes that were just burst. So the heat element had escaped. So the node had lengthened, and then the heat had to have escaped.
The vapor escaped so fast it looked like it was open.
Yes, and they found that inside the crop circle. So Levengood went about his research from a biophysicist standpoint, like what's underneath these crop circles, what's above these crop circles, not like which
what's
aliens.
Inside of them.
Yeah, which I think what he ran into is there is a broad area in the types of cereals and, rice fields. They found these circles in ice, which again is a whole different story.
Okay, I have a couple. Here's the conspiracy. Thought one, what if, and that God used to communicate with us through a language that he wrote in crop, and he's trying to communicate with us.
Yes.
Or, what if Earth is just a big billboard species, and that crop circle means left at the next nebula for the best.
Exactly.
You know,
what if it's a map?
Gleek glot burger in the universe.
So there's a couple of theories. Levengood also found at the site of every legitimate crop circle these little balls of metal. And one thing we know about the way that metal is shaped, we learned when we were creating the balls for the armory. They would drop the molten metal from high stories, and as it fell through the air, it would create these tight circles. So these are never found in man-made, and they looked. We're not talking like sampling.
So that's the ideal way to test right off the bat.
Right off the bat, they look for the nodes, and they look for these indicators. These little steel balls are found all over the crop circle, and additionally, they're found in higher levels in the center, and they've mapped them. The further out they get, the less amounts of them they're finding. So the highest level is in the center of the crops, and then it gets less and less and less.
Did they say what kind of metal it is? Is it steel?
It's like it's an earth metal. Absolutely earth metal, found in most soils. They said it's a conglomeration of whatever is found in that soil, but it's found...
So whatever it is, it's brought up from...
Yes. So it's not like a, alien metal or anything, but they're also... The good scientists are testing outside the circle to see if they're finding it outside the circle, and they're not. They're not finding these on the outside of the circle where the crops have not been smashed. They're only finding them inside the circle. So they did some testing to see if, could they have cast these out? Could they have bought these somewhere and cast them out? And they had several people test the cast theory. You can cast them out, but you can't concentrate them in the way that they're finding in the circles, where
if
the
it
most
is a prank,
in the center.
The prankster thought of a lot. Let's leave something trace behind. Let's leave
And I think that...
And that weaving the part, if they're weaving the outside...
That's not done with a board. That is like painstaking. One in, one out, one in, one out, one in, one out. And to be able to then smash them would prove to be quite the exercise. But I want to show you what they're seeing they look like in legitimate crop circles. They're not broken.
Yeah, it's laid down.
They are bent.
The node.
They are, well, and they're bent just prior to the node. So it's not like the knuckle is being bent there because that would give away. It's just prior to that. And they're only bent maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches above the ground.
So
now,
they're not bent right against the ground like you'd think if a person was there.
Right. And what they're finding is in man-made crop circles, the roots are pulled. You're doing it at night, under the cover of night. The ground is going to be its most moist. Good farmers water after the highest points in the daylight, and those root systems, especially in cereal, are very shallow. So what they're finding in man-made circles is the roots have been pulled up as
popped up.
Yes, as they've been depressed. So that's another thing, is the way that they're bent. Now,
see, that makes a whole new. If they're bending it above the ground level, that makes a whole new something. It's not physical weight that's bending it.
Right. So geometrists, for instance, this basic crop circle.
A basic, just a.
Well,
this
all of the lines that are laid over it.
This basic.
Well, the crop circle is the centerpiece. So it is 3 balls connected by a line and then 2 outside. You can lay over that genuine crop circle all of these different geometric figures, and it fits within them perfectly. Now today, a geometrist could do that on a computer in a matter of minutes, but he could not go out into a field and first try get it 100% right.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, if you'd have to have measuring devices and alignment devices. I mean, you could do a lot of stuff just using like rope and.
You could. It would be very difficult to do that exactly as it's been measured. And they've gone back to these crop circles several times and remeasured, thinking there's no way that it can be this perfect. There's just no way it can be this symmetrically perfect, leaving the exact space between every single intricate part in relation to the next. So Levengood, biophysicist, he really wants to understand the phenomenon of crop circles. First thing he finds is farmers pay him no attention. Like, he goes to interview these farmers, and they're like, we've been getting crop circles for years. It's just something that happens in this. And they don't see them as extraterrestrial. It just happens. They're like, shit, another crop circle. What they do find is the yield is better. So, step 1, Levengood takes ungerminated seed from crop circles. And from outside the crop circles, and he does controlled subject tests on these and finds that, the yield is better. The yield is just better. What he attributes it to, he's not sure, but he takes soil from both, so that's where he wants to go next. What he finds, the highest condensing of crop circles happens in the UK, in this area. Now, what he finds is...
So like in the southeast.
Right. What he finds is below the soil is there's a level of chalk. And this is we'll share it with you guys, but there's a giant area of chalky soil just below where most of these crop circles are formed.
So the aliens come down to get the chalk to make their alien chalk.
So
writing utensils.
Levengood.
And they don't have fingernails, so they wouldn't be able to do the screech thing.
I mean, that's all of the crop circles in the UK. They all fall within that.
So there's none in like Scotland or...
Well, there's lots of other places. We had some here in Utah.
Did we?
We did, up in County.
Really?
Yes.
Do we have any recent ones? I would like to go see them.
So they're still happening. They're absolutely still happening. We're getting to crop circles.
Are we?
Yes. So crop circle season is when the crops are at a point that they're still mallable. Once they get really hardy, there may be a crop formation there, but they really just don't give to it. So whatever is depressing them happens in the earliest stages of the crop.
It's like mid-growth.
Yes.
Before after their baby plant, before they're adult.
Totally
plants.
mature. Yes.
So they want to lay down the teenager plant.
That's right.
Okay.
Makes sense. So Levengood says, listen, there has to be something happening. Where that chalk is also where Stonehenge is.
Oh.
So here's the next level. If you take those rock circles and look at them from a sky level, they are also perfectly geometric.
Uh-huh.
Theorists believe that crop circles have been happening in that area and other areas of the world for centuries, and that ancient people, as a way to mark where the circles were or ended, set stones in their place.
So
and Stonehenge may have been a crop circle.
So Stonehenge might just be like a grave site for a crop circle.
So what they're finding is in this same area of heavy crop circles, they also have these big mounds that are man-made mounds. They're huge. They're mountains, man-made mounds. And around them are all of these crop circles. Theorists believe that people built these mounds to be able to monitor the crop circles, thinking that they were manna from heaven.
They were reading the messages. They understood.
So
either the messages were from God and they still spoke the language then, or the messages were from the aliens and they were up there jealous that they couldn't get off planet to go have Gleek burger.
Yes, perhaps all of that could be true. But these big stones they're finding, geometrists were like, okay, we need to study the stones because the stone circles are happening in the same area that all the crop circles are happening. The stones are geometrically perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Absolute, and we're not talking stone. We're talking boulders. Giant boulders that have survived thousands of years of weather are placed absolutely perfect. So they guessed that they were markers. Like crop circle, we need to mark them. Perhaps Stonehenge is just graveyard of a crop circle.
Maybe that's what henge means.
Crop
circle. Stone crop circle.
It could be. Another theory is what they're calling sacred, which is what you speak of, the language of the gods.
Mm-hmm.
We find sacred geometry today.
Yeah, Randall Carlson
everywhere.
does a lot.
Yeah. Leonardo da Vinci, in his measurement of man and the way that we are all absolutely perfectly proportioned, is part of sacred geometry. But also snowflake. Snowflakes are sacred geometry. It's not so weird to think that these things could just happen in nature. Crop circles could just be a manifestation of nature. Beehives, they are perfect geometry created by the butts of bees. So it's not so strange, a stretch to think that crop circles could just be occurring just by the nature of the way nature works.
Just physics.
Yes.
Happen.
So they call that sacred geometry. The last, and I think absolutely most interesting to me, is shadows. So the shadow on the ground of a sphere would just be a flat circle. A box turned in a certain way,
a cube,
would become a hexagon. The idea is that something is moving past our planet and drawing up from the soil the heat and the whatever in its wake and leaving the shadow of it. Kind of like if a boat goes through the water and it leaves its wake. So crop circles are the wake of something traveling.
The alien spaceship isn't leaving us a message. He's just sucking up juice to run his flux capacitor, and he just needs the juice out of the earth, and that's when he had to refuel, so pull it up. Scotty flipped the switch.
Or maybe it's not, maybe it's creating in its wake this microwave effect. Or maybe it slows at a point, and that's where the crop circle forms, and they're just outside of our field of view.
So the anti-gravity flux capacitor, they slowed down to turn. Yeah. And just hovered too long at that one spot. Okay, I can dig it.
So that is another theory. Now, I don't know what, are they drunk if that's what's happening in this particular crop circle? This particular crop circle has one circle in the center, and then it fans out into a pinwheel shape of hundreds of other circles.
That's obviously driving school.
It could be driving school.
That's driver's ed for aliens.
So
that's something we've never talked about. Aliens, driver's ed.
Yeah, do they have to have safety?
They have to have driver's ed.
You would think.
Well, obviously they don't have emission standards because they wouldn't be doing that if they did.
But do you know you don't need driver's ed or any kind of license to take a boat on the Atlantic Ocean? Perhaps aliens, maybe that's why we encounter them so strangely. They're lost. They don't know what they're doing. They can't control their aircraft.
Grinding the gears.
Yeah. Maybe that's what's creating crop circles. They stop. They're looking around. Their shadow
It's a flat tire.
is creating this energy, pulling it from the earth. I think it may be, absolutely, could be everything altogether. They find ancient writings that show crop circles. They were seen way back then. They moved these rocks to identify where the circles were, knowing that as the next season came, they then maybe used them for worship, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward, we're still seeing them. We're seeing them in the same areas that they've always been. Like, crop circle is likely not going to pop up in your backyard, even if you plant the whole thing with cereal.
Uh-huh. But if I move and build a house where crop circles show up, then...
Likely they will. Now, again, farmers say, listen, it's just part of farming. Where we farm, we see crop circles. They didn't make a big deal about that. People trying to learn more about crop circles made a big deal about that. I think the only thing that I get caught up in is the intelligent design.
Uh-huh.
Because crop circles are not circles. Crop circles are in hundreds of shapes. If they were just circles, Levengood's theory that they, just came up from the soil, it was steam released due to temperature, barometric pressure, perhaps some ionospheric interference from above, that I understand. But we're talking flowers, insects, and the theory of it being a shadow, like, what are they flying up there?
I still think it's alien driver's ed, and the driver doesn't know how to shift gears right, and he's just sitting there grinding.
And he's just driving
that's where they swap drivers. Remember how driver's ed, there was always the teacher and three students?
The steering wheel.
Well, no, the teacher, that's where they met their, okay, you've met your I don't know, 5 parsecs today. Now time to switch with Gleep Glurp in the back seat, and and they do the Chinese run around the car.
The Chinese drill.
The Chinese drill.
Mom made us do the Chinese
Why
drill.
do they call it the Chinese drill? The Chinese do that when they drive?
Maybe Chinese are just really fast.
Or they're good at drilling?
I don't know. So I think
Well,
that
the population is huge.
Yes.
there could be
They're tapping something.
there could be a
Move the
ton of
mic
things.
just a little bit. Yeah.
So I think that if you take it all together, we didn't even talk about balls of light. It's a bird. Some people have recorded. I actually have some of those recordings that we'll share. The balls of light above where the crop circles are.
Yeah. I think that's just reflection off a bird.
I think so. If you watch it close, it does seem to be the way that birds move. And Levengood even said he's not going to even pay attention to that because it's so far out of the realm of being able to study. He's talking a couple of videos and light being reflected off of something. What Levengood studied, and I think most cereologists still study today, is the biophysics, which I think is a piece of
A cereologist is a person who studies crops.
Yeah. Les has joined us.
It's not the study of Lucky Charms.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
That's a 5-year-old with
Yeah.
Fruit Loops in the pantry is a cereologist.
Yeah, so I think that outside of intelligent design, all of that makes total sense. Stonehenge now makes total sense to me. Stonehenge is literally in the center of the hotbed for crop circle. It is also in the most deepest part of that chocolate. Stonehenge, right above it. So I think Stonehenge perhaps was a marker of a crop circle. Maybe it showed up twice. They were like, we must build a monument. And then they spent the rest of their lives doing it. I don't know. But I think that everything outside of intelligent design can be explained through physics. I don't think I think that there are hoaxers. A bunch of winkers. What are you doing?
I want to go do one though. I think it'd be fun to go out there with the 2x4 and the stretches of rope and make something really cool.
Why?
Why?
Yes, why?
Because you'd be talking about it.
Well,
And it would look, that gold one you showed me was beautiful.
yes. And they do say, like,
And that's
many
when it was
farmers,
made by people.
yeah, many farmers say that for every crop circle that they've reported, there's been 10 or 12 others that they just don't talk about. They just cut over them because they see them all the time on these farms. They're like, yeah, my farm gets crop circle. Kind of what it does. They pay them no attention. The only thing they noticed is that in the crop circle the next year, the plant's taller. It's more hardy.
They get a better growth out of it.
Yes, and that's another reason Levengood thinks that something's being drawn up from the soil.
Is that yeah, that could draw more nutrients higher. Is the plant the next year like the same genetic plant that was planted, or is it a fresh seed that was planted every year?
Well, it's a fresh seed,
Uh-huh.
but it's in that piece of soil. That's why in Levengood Studies, he took not just the crop, he's like chunked
So
out
the
big pieces of soil.
the soil is the mitigating factor.
Right. And they found also, strangely enough, the seeds in the crop circle that were left behind, oftentimes farmers overseed just to get a good crop.
Mm-hmm.
The seeds that were left behind in the crop circle, they don't fare well. They are burnt just beyond
Really?
being able to, yeah.
So
They
it
look-
destroys that plant, but the soil's
But
more
there's
nutrient
something
rich.
in the soil is allowing for the next year's bumper to be better.
Okay.
Because they're also
Far out
taking
thought.
they're also taking seeds outside of the crop soil or the crop circle and looking at them in comparison, and they're not burnt.
Far out thought. You ready? If you own an RV, what's the worst job of owning?
Oh, stop it. This is not the dump.
What if that's where the flying saucer gets full of shit and they gotta stop
There you go.
and
Crop
cut
circle.
it loose?
Crop circle
Cut
salt.
it loose.
And it just pours down.
But it pours in a way that it spins and boop, knocks the plants
So is
down.
it kind of like akin to the guy who pees his name in the snow?
There you
When
go.
there's an intricate design,
Yeah.
they're like spraying their
Yeah.
waste.
Well, okay. Now that one that had all the intricate designs, that was a cruise liner. Multiple bathrooms, multiple septic systems.
I know. Well, I think we've solved it.
Yep,
I think
problem
we've
solved.
it.
I'm telling you, bring me into the conversation.
I think we should go on a crop circle hunt
Don't
this year.
lick the crop circles, people.
Especially the golden one.
Stay away from the
yes.
golden crop
Yes,
circle.
don't lick them.
Yeah, I think we should go find a crop circle. People
I want to find one anyway. just
people
to-
say that there's a different feeling. They're measuring magnetic pole. They're measuring all kinds of things
Has
inside these
anyone
crop
measured
circles.
methane?
I don't think they've measured. Maybe they have.
You need to write that scientist, the cereologist, a letter and say, all right,
I don't think he's alive anymore.
my
11
brother brought up a point.
He thinks. Yeah. So
See, they don't have RV packing, obviously.
they're like that Spaceballs movie. This is what's happening.
Yep.
Big RV bumping through space, emptying, creates a
Yep.
crop circle. Now we
That's
know.
it. That's it. Imagine the levers painted green.
Barf is the one who. I know too much about that movie. We'll move on.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Crop circles.
that's good. Yeah. Thanks for joining us. And on our next show, we will have Bigfoot. We've got
Bigfoot.
our in-house guest today is going to be all about Bigfoot. But remember, please like, share, review, subscribe, and interact with us. We want to know what we can do to improve and what you'd like to hear.
Yeah. Let us know what you think about crop circles.
Yes, yes. Oh,
Don't go make crop circles.
We-
Bunch of wankers. Ruin everybody's crops.
we all know I'm right. The aliens dropping
Ay, ay, ay.
their septic system. All right, thanks for joining us.
Have a great week.